here we are, last chapter of the month. Oh, we have 5 more after this, though. For the life of stories of great persons, we're looking at George Whitfield. If you'd be so inclined, leave a comment as we carry along with us, and make sure you pull up a chair for a friend, pour them a cup of coffee or hot cocoa or iced tea or whatever you do, and both of you, subscribe. Don't miss out. Join us daily. Well, that said, let's get on with it. Chapter 17, leaving 5 more chapters after this one, 6 including this. Here we are.
It's finally complete.
Very impressive. I should say so. Very impressive.
I know how long you've waited for this, George. You must feel very grateful.
Proud is probably more like it, eh, Chaplain? Look at it. Bethesda Orphan House, the only one of its kind in the colony.
God has been very good.
And you've worked hard. I'm putting that into my journal of the colony's life and times.
Where you're strutting, Stephen, you think you had something to do with it, too.
Well, as Milton once said, they also serve Well, if it wasn't for the cooperation of all the trustees and staff of the colony, Bethesda wouldn't have been started here.
No, I guess it wouldn't have started here. Well, George, how do you feel? What do you say?
I say, Lambert, let's collect those orphans from their temporary homes, those we can collect off the streets of Savannah, and make more than just a building out of Bethesda.
Our friends everywhere with Chapter 17 of Apostle of Two Continents, the story of George Whitfield. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians that comes to you from the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.
Resigning my post as chaplain to the colony, but not I am, I have. I thought surely you'd be notified by now, Mr. Stevens.
Whitfield, there's something strange about you. Every time you decide to do something different, I'm the last person to hear about it.
I didn't realize that I needed your approval.
Well, it isn't that. It's just that I ought to know about such changes. After all, who has been appointed colony historian?
Is that your new title?
Well, that's what I call it down here. But back to this ridiculous designation.
Ridiculous?
Yes, of course it's ridiculous. I mean, as a minister, you're enjoying a time of great success. People are moaning at your meetings, getting into fits and convulsions. Oh, maybe a little one-sided against good works, but that doesn't hamper your success.
Mr. Stevens, I don't think with much kindness upon all the outward manifestations that show themselves occasionally at my meetings.
But that's a sure sign you're getting through, isn't it? People falling down on the floor and shouting.
I'm afraid one could begin to worship these things and ultimately demand them as proof of regeneration. I'm glad when any man turns his eyes to Christ. I do not care whether he rolls on the floor in public or wrestles with his spirit in private.
Yes, of course. And many are becoming converted by your words, Whitfield. That's why I view this whole resignation of yours as absolutely wrong.
Nonetheless, I have resigned.
But, well, what will you do? Go back to England and be swallowed up? At least here you have prestige, a place of prominence.
You and I never really communicated, do we, Mr. Stevens?
I don't understand what you mean.
That's it exactly. Mr. Stevens, I represent no one but God. The God that created me. The decisions I make, the places I go, I believe to be His will, His alone. The superficial values that you praise mean nothing. I find that popularity not so much to be sought as avoided, as a hindrance.
Well, you have different ideas, Whitfield, but I don't care to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of our respective positions. Would you mind telling me what you do plan to do?
Not at all. I've received many invitations from various parts of the colony to preach and present the work of Bethesda. I shall spend my time answering those invitations. I believe that it's God's will that I spend my time promoting the support of Bethesda as well as presenting his gospel.
Well, they're coming off with a great deal of personal glory at the same time.
Mr. Stevens, you are a wicked man, and as such I must tolerate, even pity you. But I earnestly submit to you that not everyone in this world reasons in exactly the same way as you do. Now, if you will excuse me, I must get my things together. Tonight, a small group of us are sailing north for New England. I've long been waiting the chance to see for myself what has been called the Great Awakening.
Don't worry, Reverend Whitfield, we'll get her there.
I've seen a worse gale than this crossing the Atlantic.
If it were only blowing from behind instead of in front. I don't know whether we'll make Newport before dark at this rate.
I've prayed.
What?
I've prayed that God would allow us all the opportunity of public worship this day.
Well, that'd be very nice, Reverend. But I wouldn't get my hopes up. Rhode Island is a long way off. And these winds don't seem to show any signs of letting up. Well, I gotta hand it to you, Reverend. I never expected to be coming out of a service. For that matter, even going into one on this day.
We tend to forget that God is in control of not just the wind, but the particular wind that we feel.
Yeah, I guess so.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes?
I'm the rector here. Honeyman is my name. I wonder if you and your party have accommodations here in Newport yet.
No, we don't, but
Well, I'd like to offer the use of my home to you.
That's very kind of you, sir.
I must admit ulterior motives. I'm hoping you'll preach here while in Newport.
So there we all were, worried about drowning, you understand. And what was he worried about? It's Sunday, he says, and we haven't any of us been to public worship. I guess I'll just pray about it, he says. Well, you know, in no time the wind does an about face and rides us into Newport as sweet as you please. And we all had time to get ready and attend the service.
Extraordinary. I've never seen the like of it, George.
It does seem as though a great many merchants were able to attend this morning.
Merchants? I see you haven't been told who they all are.
No, I haven't.
George, those men are all the representatives of the House of Assembly. It was in session this morning and voted in recess that they might all en masse attend your meeting. Extraordinary.
I don't know, Mr. Whitfield. I just don't know what to do about it. I mean, I was perfectly happy to have you preach here in North Church. I was even a little flattered that of all the churches in Boston you would pick mine. But now
All that I said this afternoon is true, Mr. Chetley. You know that.
Oh, I'm not quibbling with what you said. I might have said the same thing in a private conversation. Right here in the service with so many ministers in the congregation.
What then, child? All I said was that many of the clergy were unconverted men.
But the way you went on about it, so emphatic. I just don't know, Mr. Whitfield. I can't help thinking that it was all a bit injudicious.
You know as well as I do the truth of the matter. Why, in the short time I've been preaching here in Boston, over a dozen ministers have come to me and told me of their conversions as the result of my preaching.
But the sermons that were instrumental in their conversions were not aimed at unconverted ministers. They didn't attack that particular group. I think that the most all you've done is alienate the ministers that were here this afternoon. And he told me he was extremely sorry to see you here in Boston.
So's the devil.
Really?
Mr. Chetley, you think you don't understand what's going on. Try to imagine how I feel. But as long as I can remember, I've heard of the so-called Great Awakening that was supposed to have taken place in this area a few years ago. I pictured New England a virtual heaven on earth, with Christians running about everywhere.
That's a somewhat unrealistic picture.
So I discovered. In the 6 years since this awakening was supposed to have happened, the spiritual light has turned to darkness, leaving only a vestige of what might have been. I believe your extreme Sabbath observance is commendable. I believe that the numerous churches are a good sign. I'm impressed with the institutions of higher learning that have been established. But in all these things there's empty form, carelessness, no real concern for the spiritual bases on which they must rest. Where is all that Jonathan Edwards is said to have accomplished in the souls of men?
It would take a long time to tell you all that has happened since that revival of religious interest. The picture, as you call it, is rather black. But don't you fear, Mr. Whitfield, that your hearers are evidence of past teaching. I've seen a great deal of spiritual reawakening since you began to preach here.
It would be hard for me to distinguish between reawakening and simply awakening.
Well, then, you shall have to take my word on it. You see, at times, Mr. Edwards seemed to frighten people into the kingdom with his emphasis on damnation and punishment. I believe that the babe in Christ must move beyond that initial fear. And I believe that your usual message helps the new Christian to do just that.
My usual message? Oh, you mean one that is not construed to condemn the blind leading the blind?
That's right. At least listen to the advice of a man somewhat older in years and as a Christian. You have wonderful powers as a messenger of God's word, Mr. Whitfield. I've never seen your like. But I feel our Lord would wish a more loving approach from his, such as the one today. It's true that Jesus regularly threw the merchants out of the temple and openly condemned the religious leaders of his time. But don't forget the gentleness and love that he showed to Nicodemus, and that leader failed to inquire. The frightening, angry approach, such as Jonathan Edwards sometimes uses, has its place. Man must be aware of his evil state, but we must not leave it there. God is love. God's whole message for man is his love and care for man. Please remember that, Mr. Whitfield.
I shall try, sir, with all my heart.
Now I suggest you retire. If I'm not mistaken, you leave rather early tomorrow morning to preach in Northampton at Jonathan Edwards' home church.
You prepare a delicious table, Mrs. Edwards. Would that I deserved such hospitality.
You're very complimentary, Mr. Whitfield. Actually, we all believed your message well warranted the best that we could offer.
Very interesting sermon, Mr. Whitfield. I know my congregation was impressed.
I heard lots say that you preach better than Father.
Are you through with your meal, young man?
Oh, no, ma'am, you can see that.
Then perhaps you'd better go on eating quietly until you are.
I've read with great interest your narrative of the Great Awakening, Mr. Edwards.
Those days were profitable times for God. I'm afraid that much of the zeal is gone from the movement.
I almost felt some of it return this morning, Jonathan. Did you?
That would be hard to say, my dear. I do know that the congregation was impressed by what Mr. Whitfield had to say.
The consolation and privileges of being a Christian.
What does consolation mean?
It means to be comforted, John. Like when you wake in the night from a bad dream, and we come into you and tell you that everything is all right.
Yeah, that should take care of the last of it. I'm sure Gilbert will be the right man to continue working with in Boston with the newly revived interest. But now to the south. Stop, O my soul. Look back on the great things the Lord hath done for thee during this excursion. It is now the 75th day since I arrived at Rhode Island. I have been enabled to preach 175 times in public, besides exhorting very frequently in private. I've traveled upwards of 800 miles, and gotten upwards of 700 pounds sterling in goods, provisions, and money for my poor orphans. Never did God vouchsafe me such great assistance. Never did I perform my journeys with so little fatigue, or see such a continuance of the divine presence in the congregations to whom I preach. All things concur to convince me that America is to be my chief scene of action.
And so we conclude Chapter 17 of Apostle of Two Continents. the story of George Whitfield. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians that comes to you from the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.
Well, here's a twist we didn't actually see coming, right? George Whitfield to America. We knew of him in England, we knew of him in Europe, the Great Awakening, but George Whitfield to America. Well, I can't wait to see what chapters 18 through 22 will hold in store for us. Until then, Lord bless and keep you until the end of this month, and you should join us next week in August to begin again chapter 18. Stories of Great Christians. Till then, may you be a great Christian. May the Lord help you to rise up, and as He lifts you up, lift Him up. Make sure He is exalted. We're actually be less and less, but as we exalt Him, He exalts His word and His will. Till then, God bless. See you then next time.